They're like, we thought you loved this. And I'm like, I'm done. That's it. I don't want anything to do with this no more. Get this away from me, you know? And they're like, oh, it's like that. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, you know too much. We're going to have to kill you. And I'm like, okay, well.
They tell you this telepathically?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why, like, no,
your friends?
Yeah, my friend, you know, like,
got it.
You know, like.
So were you presented like a choice at that time?
Oh, absolutely. That was the ultimate decision. Like, it was real as real guy, you know. They're like, dude, you know what's going on? Stop being a jack. Like, stop right now. Like, here you go. Look, we're over here. You know, like, and you can like see everything that's going on, like on that level, like everything's just different over there, you know, like I look this way and that's the dark side. And I can like speak telepathically and open my third eye forever. That's what all this is about, you know, like opening your third eye and like just have this communion with the darkness, but like you're never going to be able to shut it off at that point. Like, I don't think I would need acid anymore. You're just like on all the time.
Wow.
So yeah. And that's what like opening your third eye is. When people talk about it, I'm like, you don't really know what you're talking about, you know?
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for another episode of Venice the Menace. We've got a really interesting interview today, a little bit different than our usual interviews. Today we've got Trey in studio there in Florida with Dennis, and we're going to be talking and discussing Trey's experience with psychedelics. And Trey is a Christian now, but he has years of experience with psychedelics. We wanted to have this discussion because it's not every day you meet somebody that's a Christian that has so much experience with these substances. And nowadays it seems like psychedelics are all the rage, and you've got all sorts of celebrities and even scientists promoting the use of psychedelics. And the conclusion seems to be that it's not just something in your brain that's happening, but it's something spiritual, extra dimensional, whatever you want to call it. And there's even scientific studies that are starting to show that the use of psychedelics does actually give people access to something outside of this third dimension. And we'll talk about that in the interview a bit. So without further ado, I hope you guys stick around. Trey speaks pretty quick, you know, and he's definitely a little more squirrely, but the story is pretty incredible, and some of the things he experienced and how he relates them to being spiritual and how they are just straight up evil. He thinks he's encountered the devil through psychedelics, and that led him to find Jesus, because he says if the devil is real, Jesus has to be real.
Hey everyone, welcome to Venice the Menace. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just like always, we have a special guest today and a special podcast for you. But before we dive in, I just wanted to remind you to help support the channel by liking, sharing with as many people as you can, commenting, and also subscribing, right? We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on X, we're on Spotify, Apple Music, or no, are we on Apple Podcasts? I don't know.
We will be.
We will be at some point. And we have something new to talk about or to present. We have this members only. Remember those jackets? You're probably too young.
Members
only.
Exactly.
Don't give away my age like that.
Those are amazing. Those member only jackets. We have at YouTube, you can go to become a member and subscribe and support us financially, which would be really nice, because then we can buy a new mic for me and give me a haircut maybe at some point. And maybe some Venice the Menace merch. That'd be nice if I can buy some for myself.
What are you wearing?
One day.
Like this shirt. Well, this was free because I'm kind of like
you were half of Ennis.
He's the Ennis.
I'm the Ennis. But yeah, we have some merch. Do we have the shop up yet? I don't know.
No, I'll get it back up. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's not Ben's fault. That's my fault.
You got some like sick underwear and stuff too. Is what we heard on the screen.
Did I show it to you?
No, I heard you guys talking about it on one of the shows.
We can model it if you guys want.
That's for the members only.
There you go.
And Ben loves to talk about this one. We have a subscription for our members only that is called the Tithe subscription. So it's 1/10 of your income.
Yeah.
That's how much it costs. No, but if you do support us, we'd be super grateful, and it'd be doing a good thing, of course, to get people like Trey on so that we can hear his stories. And we have, thank you for all your support, by the way, for everyone out there. We really appreciate it. And for your prayers. If you can't support, then please pray. there's a lot of stuff. Even tonight, we had to battle the devil a little bit and pray against him with some tech stuff, but it happens a lot. So thank you guys for your support. I want to introduce my good buddy, Trey.
Hello.
Whoa, hi.
Trey, Ben, Trey.
First time caller, long time listener.
We love Trey. Trey is a dedicated viewer and a good friend of mine. I met him here in Florida through the men's group at our church, and I met his beautiful family. Trey just had a second baby.
Nice.
He's got 2 girls. His first girl has a crush on me.
Oh, sorry.
She is so cute. She is the cutest. She holds my hand. She's like the only.
She is the sweetest.
Yeah, she's the best.
That's great.
And they have 2 really great dogs.
4 cats, a fish tank. There's just a zoo going on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Trey's got
That's a lot.
I need an anchor, otherwise I just fly away. For real.
Hey man, I can attest to that sometimes.
Yeah.
Ben knows that too well. But yeah, we're super excited to have you, man. Thank you so much for being here, and we have a lot to talk about. I want to, Ben, before we get started, is there anything you want to say or add, Ben? I don't want
to. No.
Okay, good. All right, let's get started. Let's dive right into Trey's story. I just want to say, I met him, I don't know you for that long, but we've had some great conversations. And he has a heart for Jesus. I think you're like a small group leader, or like a men's group discipleship leader, or a mixed group or something.
Yeah, we're a nonprofit. Jesus Wax, shout out. You guys need any surf wax for Jesus? The guy?
All right.
Jesus Wax?
That's me, man. If Jesus can walk on water, you can stick to your board.
There you go.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And then all of like the proceeds go to, my buddy shapes the boards and my wife does the artwork on them. And we always go to like Nicaragua or like El Salvador. And then all of the artwork is like scripture and it's in Spanish. So whoever ends up getting the board is like forced to just look at God's word all the time, whether they know him or not. Yeah. So like, hopefully it'll work its way into somebody's heart.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that was my passion
So where is
project.
that? JesusWax.com or something?
Dude, I think there's like a Squarespace for it. I've got an Instagram. It's Jesus_wax. So yeah, check it out. Yeah.
We'll link it to this episode.
Yeah, the local surf community, helps support, and we're on board. Like I think we've done 4 boards so far, and then
nice.
Yeah, hopefully going back down to Nicaragua this winter.
Yeah, because you guys were there like 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, we went down to Jesus like back in November last year. We put on a contest down there and actually gave the board to the kid that got last place. Like as a representation of the gospel, like the first is last.
Did they know this?
Nah, absolutely not. So
cool.
It was like just a regular contest. The winner got stuff too, but not a brand new board. And then the other board went to whoever had the most beat up board in the contest. So like another great representation of the gospel. It's like, he like takes the broken things, like the beat up, and just makes them brand new, in an instant.
That's why I love this guy.
That's awesome, man.
He's amazing.
That's awesome.
Super stoked to have you, dude. So surfer guy, you also do roofs. You started
I sure did.
Roofing business.
And Dennis's neighbor just did a roof, and he didn't even refer me. Right across the street. I pulled up. I said, "What?"
That was before I knew you were starting a business, buddy. But yeah, they did. And I didn't even know they were doing it. They did a good job, actually.
Sure, they did.
We'll see. So yeah, lives in Jacksonville. So let's dive in. Where'd you come from?
I'm from Ohio originally.
All right.
And man, I moved down here when I was like 17, got in a little bit of trouble. And I was like, do a summer in juvie or move to Florida with my aunt to finish my senior year or, to do my senior year. I'm like, yeah, obviously I'm not going to sit in juvie for a summer. And it was the greatest, decision that I've ever made, led me to where I am today. So all that trouble, what is it? God uses what was meant for evil for good. So got me to where I am today.
Yeah.
So then you were in Jacksonville during high school, and then when did you leave Jax? And where'd you go?
I was in Jacksonville for 2 years. I was like 17, graduated 18, stayed here for a year, and then moved out to Hawaii when I was 19. I thought I was moving to Thailand. I had a bag full of like Thai shorts and boxing gloves, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go over here and just like start a professional Thai career, like Thai boxing, Muay Thai, and my buddy was living in Hawaii, and I was like, well, that's enough, like I'm done training for 6 hours a day. I've had enough, I was like into smoking dope back then. So like it just, the island feel was like, I'm not going anywhere. This is it for me. And then I bought some property out there, 3 acres, and built a little off-grid cabin and ended up out there for like 7 years. Growing up, I was back here. I was like super into like the party, like the rave scene, So for a while I was just like eating ecstasy every weekend, MDMA, like pretty much every Friday and Saturday night for a good couple years. Started selling it, and then just kept like getting deeper into the scene. And it was a lot of good fun back then, looking back now, I'm like, well, I'm glad I did all that. I know how to dance. Like, it was all for something,
Yeah.
Took those inhibitions away. And there was something good that came out of all that. But really, the whole story is about is just LSD. Like, so when I started like getting into the rave scene, I did
here in Jackson.
Yeah, in Jax. Like, I didn't really dabble in that. I'm like, yeah, like growing up as a kid, actually, my great uncle got stuck in a trip for like 10 years. He went out like, he graduated high school like 1972, and they all went out to California. And his friends just brought him back, kicked him out of the car, and he got some bad so whoever the chemist was that made it just did something wrong, or it was a whole spiritual trip, because it is in my family, and this is about to be the craziest story ever. So, it's just like leading up to it. It's like in my family, like the path of my family, So he was just stuck in a trip for 10 years and literally just walked circles around my great-grandparents' house and like picked at his toes and just like giggled, and I've always wanted to ask him about it, but I don't. Wow. I don't know.
And he's out of it now.
Yeah, he's out of it. He's like as normal as one could be for like having schizophrenia for 10 years, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Like he's a little awkward, but I mean,
I know people recovered from that.
Yeah, he like he retired, got a job, everything, and because like I said, that was when he was 19. So I mean, he came out of it about 30. He's retired now. He's 65-ish, and as normal as one could be. Not married, no kids, anything like that. He's on his own, but
that's
wild. So that story just like led me to like, I ain't touching them psychedelic drugs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't doing no L. And, but my dad, man, I didn't realize this until I got to be like 18, graduated. He's like, yeah, man, I used to travel with the dead back in the day. He's like, I did a 10 strip every Saturday and just sit on the couch and watch golf. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, dude, you can eat as much acid as you want. You'll eventually come down. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, he's in prison now. So
bye, Dad.
He's doing a 7-year bid at the moment. So, no, he's my best friend though. Like he'd never been in trouble his whole life. That was like the first thing he ever got in trouble for.
Jeez, that sucks. What a way to start.
Exactly. So he said that, and I'm like, I guess I can like start like dabbling in the world of psychedelics. Like if he came out of it and he's normal enough, like I guess I'll give it a go. So, I mean, I ate some mushrooms once, nothing really happened. And then I had like my first like real like LSD experience. Like, I mean, nothing crazy happened. It was just like crazy colors, like wavy, everything, and I'm like, all right, whatever, this is cool. Like everything was like amplified. I'm like, okay. I mean, cool enough, no like ego death breakthroughs or anything like that. And then I just started like getting into eating a bunch of mushrooms. Like I'd like eat one time I ate like a half ounce of like really good Cubensis, like 14 grams, and just like had the wildest ride, and I'm like, oh my God, there's like another like consciousness here. And like, it like let me like be inside of it, like it was like, it was amazing. Like I just like close my eyes and I'd like pop out of this existence into whatever that was, and it's just like colors and warmth. And like, it was really, really good. I'm like, okay, well, obviously there's something more going on with reality. And, I want to find out.
So you realize that like this isn't just some chemicals in my brain. You actually believed you're engaging with something.
Dude, like why would God create a human that had those experiences if like those parts of your brain weren't there to allow them to happen? Like everything like coexists on Earth, whether it's like, introduced from a fallen world and God had some other intention for it and the devil like turned it for evil, but like everything in the human body, I feel like has some kind of, it's there for a reason,
Can I ask a question really quick? What was your view on God during this time? Like, were you? You beat me to it.
Dennis,
I was about to backtrack to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Dennis, use the mic when you talk, please.
So is it that bad? Okay.
Yeah, just.
He was asking like what was my view on God before all that, and like I used to have like some like anxiety around like death and things like that because I grew up like Pentecostal until I was like 12. Like I'm talking like real deal Pentecostal, like people like falling on the floor, like tambourines, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
people running around, all that. So I'm like, I mean, I probably went there until I was like 12, and like that's what my family has always been Pentecostal though. And then I kind of like got into like, and then we started going to like a non-denominational church, and I was still, my dad never believed in God. So like my dad was like my hero, you know. I'm like, well, this dude's an atheist. He doesn't believe in God. Like obviously there's no God. Like how's that even possible? Like, you think something created us? Like, no, don't think so. So then like my kind of like prayer my whole life was like praying to a God that I didn't believe in. And I'm like, hey God, if you're real, you're gonna have to show me. Otherwise you're getting no belief out of me whatsoever. I'm like, unless you show me, like, I'm not just one of those people that like piggyback off someone else's belief, or like, you know, some people's testimonies are just like, yeah, I grew up in the church and read the Bible, felt the Holy Spirit. I'm like, that's not me. Like, God, if you're real, you're going to smack me in the face with it, like, you know. And he sure did. So he, man, the first time anything like crazy really happened is we were at this music festival, and like leading up to it that day, I've never like had stomach cramps that bad, or like been like felt like I probably shouldn't have went. Like if it was anything else other than a festival that I had already paid for, I probably wouldn't have went. And I feel like that might have been like God trying to keep me from what I was about to go through, but I just pushed through it anyways, you know, like I'll be fine. So probably eat, I'd say like 300 micrograms ish, so like 3 hits acid, and like walk in, you know, like, and everything is just like, you know, like the music is like blasting color at you, and like whatever else, you know, like just your typical acid experience for me at the time. And then like we go inside this tent, and I like lay down in there, and I like close my eyes, and my body just starts like, there's like a pyramid, and then it just goes to another pyramid, and it feels like, and as it gets closer and closer to the point, I feel like my body's arching, and like my soul's about to blow out of my body. And it does. My soul just like blows out of my body. And there's like this whole group of people there, and they're all like talking in telepathy. And they're like, oh my gosh, hey, like, how you doing? Like, and I can just feel like everybody's feelings and everything, you know?
These are the people in the tent?
Yeah.
The people in the tent were speaking telepathically? Can you hear me?
Yeah, dude, it's just...
Yeah, let's get my break now.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. I don't know if it cut out.
Yeah, we're good.
It's just so hard to talk about. It's like reliving it, dude.
What do you feel though? Is it scary, or is it anxiety?
It's scary. Yeah,
it's scary, right?
Yeah, it's like the drugs are kicking back in.
Dang.
Yeah, it's rough, but...
So that's something you experienced then, but how do you feel about it, knowing like what Jesus did for you now? You know what I mean? Kind of when you go back into it.
Yeah, I know that Jesus is the only way, you know, and like, and like all of that stuff on the other side was like of the devil, like literally, you know.
Dude.
Yeah, man. So like, important to talk about this, you know, because so many people don't know, or they dabble in stuff that they
dude, I can't tell you how many people online, because we've got like a decent following on like Instagram. I can't tell you how many people online are like, bro, you got to do mushrooms, you got to take LSD, you got to try opening up your mind, you got to try. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, you don't get it. I don't want to mess with that stuff, because I believe in the spiritual realm. I think it's real, and I think there's good and there's evil. You know what I mean? So why would I like alter my mind with hallucinogenics to engage in a realm where like I'm not protected in? If you're not Jesus's, right? If you don't belong to Jesus and you engage in that realm, you have no control over what's going to come to you, what messages you're going to receive, what kind of effect they're going to have on you. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I've always been scared of like engaging with hallucinogenics. And my personal belief is that like God created humans to be in a certain like state of mind and chemical balance. You know what I mean? That we engage this dimension and this world and this realm the way he intended us to. And if we alter that chemistry, I think that we can engage with the spiritual realm. But that was never his design for us to do. You know what I mean? So it's always been really scary. And that's why I'm like, I'm sure it's bringing up some emotions to like go back there.
Yeah,
you
dude,
know what I mean?
It's a wild ride. I'm like reliving it, you know, like I feel like, you know, people talk about having PTSD and like going through
Wow.
flashbacks, but it's like I can almost like feel the drugs, you know, just having to like actually relive these things and say it out loud. So like we, you know, see each other's auras and like talking telepathy and all this, you know, and I'm like, it was so beautiful. It really was like it had like, you could feel each other's feelings and like you didn't have to say any words. It was just like you could hear everybody's thoughts and everything, and it was so beautiful. It really was, you know, like. And I'm like, and sometimes I like hope, I'm like, all right, if heaven is even a fraction of this, then like we are in for the greatest thing ever, you know? And just going through that, and like the girl I was with like wasn't really into the drugs. Like she would do ecstasy with me, but she's like, I ain't touching that LSD, you know? And which is a good thing, you know, otherwise I'd have fallen way further down the rabbit hole. So man, we just feel everything about each other out there in that world, you know, and they had some like, it's honestly, it's almost undescribable. You know what I mean? But to feel somebody's feelings, like when they're happy or sad, and just like be able to completely be empathetic for them. Like, you know, like I was scared. I didn't know what was happening. You know, they're like, oh, hey, it's okay. And I'm like, what, you know? So, and there's just some like really cool stuff, like interactive stuff, like, you know, like all those festivals, that's what it's for. It's made for acid, you know, like it's just some really cool, like interactive stuff you could do with it. Like just things you could see, and like everybody's like on this same, like the higher wavelength up here, you know, like,
right.
And it was just so beautiful. And then like the girl I was with wasn't into it. I don't know if she like wasn't allowed in the tent kind of because it like wasn't her place. She didn't know what was going on, but like on a spiritual level, she had no clue. And like, I didn't really either. It's just like the tip of the iceberg. So like we leave the tent, and like, obviously I'm still like up there, but like I came down a bit, you know, like I don't know why, but so like the rest of the night went on like pretty normally, like listening, you know, just hanging out at a festival, just listening to music, you know. I mean, I was still like normal acid trip. Like I like came down from like where you're on plane with everybody else. And so like we go home that night, and I'm like, what just happened? Like, is this even real? Am I just like tripping? Like, did I eat too much acid? And like all that was just in my head, you know, because the people I'm with there, my buddy and his girl, like they don't say anything about it, you know, because once you're in the club, you don't talk about it, you know. It's like the greatest secret there is, you know, because
really?
Yeah, if you're in, you can talk to each other in telepathy, so they're gonna like know what's going on. Yeah, so like, and I'm like, all right, that was very strange. Like, go home, come down, and like sleep it off, go back to the festival the next day. He's massive again before we go in, and like I'm not back up there again, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? You know, like, well, why isn't this happening again? Maybe I'm just crazy, you know, like it's just like a normal acid trip. And then I like eat some ecstasy after that, and like the compound of the two like brought me back up there, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, your dad is God, like our dad is God, and like, you know, are you going with him or are you coming with us? And I'm like, coming with us? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like new to this. I'm like not good at talking in telepathy, and I'm like trying to say words out loud too at the same time, you know. Like, my girlfriend's like, what? Why are you mumbling? And I'm like, okay, just stop talking, just think, you know, like what are you mumbling about? And they're like, yeah, our dad's God. Like, are you going with him or are you staying with us? And I'm like, this is weird. I'm like this, I'm just tripping way too hard, you know. This is just, none of this makes any sense. Like, it can't be real. Like, these are just like, this is why people tell you not to do drugs, so you're gonna go crazy, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, calm down, you know. Just a normal night after that, really nothing too crazy. And then well, I guess my buddy's girl was like, oh my gosh, everybody says your aura is so beautiful. They say it's like deep purple. And because I'm like not up there anymore, you know. I don't know how I fell off, but or I didn't want to be up there anymore. I don't even know, you know, don't know how that works, but came down. And then we got back to the hotel that night and asked my buddy, I'm like, what is that? And he's like, what are you talking about, man? And I'm like, you know, like, what was going on? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, really? So
you're just trying to keep it a secret.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the greatest.
He just didn't want to talk about it either.
He's like, No,
do you think it's because they're scared, or do you think they just don't understand, or do you think that there's just like an unspoken?
Oh no, it's an unspoken.
Rule?
It's like an unspoken rule, you know.
You just
like
don't talk about
if you're in the club, you don't talk. If you're in Fight Club, you don't talk about Fight Club. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like yeah.
So if you're in the higher dimension, you don't talk about the higher dimension.
Exactly. You don't want you don't want people catching on to what's going on. You know, like, and I'm like, it just blows my mind that I've never heard anybody talk about this before. Right. You know, like in a public space. But that's the thing. Most people are just like, dude, I was just on drugs. Might be crazy.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like, who would believe you anyways? So
well, it's interesting that you describe it as people like communicating telepathically, you know, because there's a lot of people that have experiences, like spiritual experiences without drugs, okay, where they engage with certain like beings, or they see certain things and they communicate with them
absolutely.
telepathically.
I thought we were just like messing around with aliens is what was going on. That's like what it felt like. I thought we were just like, this is crazy. I thought they were from like the Dog Star, like Sirius B. Like, I don't know how I was like given this like information, like whatever. It just felt everything felt so alien and so unnatural, you know, like. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, I guess the aliens just found us. Like, I don't know why they just want to party. But I guess I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I was young. I didn't actually think that thought. I'm like, all right, I guess we're just messing around with the aliens, you know? Like, thanks for letting me in, guys.
Interesting.
So then, like, I guess while I was like laying there and like we were talking telepathically, that the one time I was like, hey, we can just like this. I had the house in Hawaii at this time, like just the property there, like the 3 acres. And I was like, we could just do this forever at my place. I like thought this, and they're like, okay. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah, I didn't think anything of it, but the story will digress.
Right.
So we, a couple weeks later, we do some mushrooms and just like, what are we doing acid? We did some mushrooms. It all takes you to the same place. The mushroom trip's just shorter.
Really?
Yeah. So we did some mushrooms, and like my buddy's girl comes over after we're like done tripping, and she looks at my buddy. She's like, did you talk to him about it? Like talking about me, you know, because you can't talk about it out loud, you know? And they're just like, you know, and I still didn't catch the drift. Like nothing, I don't know. Like I still wasn't just catching on. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, this is still just a trip. Like nothing crazy happened during that mushroom experience, but like just her actions, like asking questions like that, like, you know, as we go on, like it just makes it just makes the story whole. Like they were trying to ask me like what I was doing. Like, am I going with them or are you going with God? And I didn't know yet. But I guess there was another acid experience in there, like where I just like felt it was like a good one, you know? I mean, they show you like good things too. Like I felt like I went back to the beginning of time and there was just like 2 metallic bars. There's like a positive and a negative, and somebody just like hit it in like everything just expanded out from it, you know? Like there was some crazy beautiful things that I've like experienced, but to still come back to Jesus is just the wild part, you know? Like
man, that's sorry, real quick. That's another thing. When I talk to people who are always online that are telling me to like experiment with psychedelics, right? Or hallucinogenics, I'm like, I don't want it because that's evil, right? We're told not to do that. And they're like, but it's so nice and you experience love and it's beautiful and it's this and it's that. There's nothing evil about it. There's nothing dark about it. And I'm like, so what? Like the dumbest thing ever that Satan could do is if people get high and they go into like hell, and people would be like, well, I never want to go back here. You know what I mean? But if he can make it this like enticing place where people want to escape this world and go spend more time there. Oh yeah. That's the best thing he could do. Absolutely, like strategically, that's the best thing he could do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it even says that the devil masquerades as an angel of light. He's not going to come to you and be like, follow me. You know, exactly. He might with some people.
He's beautiful, you know, like he was the most beautiful angel there ever was, you know?
Exactly. So why would his interaction with you be anything other than
exactly? Like, it talks about like him like being like made out of like all these jewels and everything, you know, like it's like those trips just like feel like, you know, maybe you're just like inside of his being or, you know.
Wow.
So I have this theory that
fascinating.
The reason why we have this picture, this image of the devil is like a dragon or, you know, something with horns and red and nasty, and then demons are just nasty, right? And just scary looking. I have this belief that that's also from the devil, so that when he does approach, or his demons do approach a human, they think, oh, this is so beautiful. How can this be the devil?
Dude, that's a great observation, man.
Right.
I could see that. For sure.
And that's where you get in with all these psychedelics and stuff, because it is beautiful. I've tried things, and it's like it is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I didn't have those kinds of experiences or nothing.
And some people don't, is the crazy thing, you know, like, but I told God he had to show me.
Yeah. But you also did a lot.
Yeah. I mean, more than your average.
Your average. Like the things that you told me, I was like, this is, I don't know how you're still here today.
So then we got some DMT like a week later, and none of us had smoked it before. Like I was getting stuff off like the dark web, like back in the day, like the Silk Road, when it was actually the Silk Road, you know. I was like the one that like figured out Bitcoin out of all our friends and everything, you know.
Oh, dude, are you like a billionaire?
Dude, it's funny. Because this was like back when like Bitcoin was like $250 a piece, and you know, and I'm like, a couple of years ago when like Bitcoin like jumped up to like 20 grand or something, I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if I have some like money left over from buying drugs. And then I finally recover my Coinbase account, and there's like 50 cents in there. I'm like, like dirty hippie. What's wrong with you?
You know, it's worth now today.
Yeah, I know. It's kicking myself for sure.
I won't bring it up.
Yeah. So
dude, that's funny. Hey, so you probably in your like Silk Road experience probably spent like 20, 100, whatever Bitcoin when they were like $2 a piece.
Yeah.
Now it'd be like millions.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, wow, dude, I did millions of dollars worth of psychedelic drugs.
Exactly. Dude, exactly. Oh my gosh. Right, okay, so you
so we get the DMT, it shows up in the mail, and we're riding the car on the way to go smoke it, you know, and like before we got out of the car, that Paul McCartney song starts playing, like oh man, what's the song, man? Like, what if all the people, what if there was no religion,
right.
You know, like as soon, I'm like, wow, this is very fitting, like for what if there's no religion? And it was like, I feel like it was like the devil just like communicating with me. I mean, he's like the prince of the airwaves, you know, like when the internet started working, I'm like, yeah, this is his earth, like, you know, like he does have some leeway. And so, you know, I forget who went first. I
might have first time doing it.
It was like all of our first times doing DMT. I smoked it. And I just like started blasting through hyperspace, and like, you know what the flower of life is, like where it just overlaps each other, you know, like the sacred geometry.
Okay.
And so like every time I like get to a connection point in it, I just like blast through it, and then it just start all over again and again and again and again. It was just fractal forever, you know. You know, and I'm like, I mean, obviously you think you're dead, but you know, I like wake up on the couch and I'm like, you know. But then when I came to, we were back on that same plane of like talking telepathy. They're like, okay, so what are you doing here, man? And everybody, you know, the dude I was with, that I was always with, like he was in, you know, he was into the club. So, And he's like, okay, so what are you doing, man? This is really it. Like, what don't you understand? Like, we are of the darkness. Like, you know, we play in the dark. It's fun, you know? And I'm like, I came down off of that. I'm like, I still don't understand, you know, like how many times are you going to deny that? But like, you always just hear of like people doing drugs, and you're like, yeah, dude, you're just tripping, you know? So then end up going back to Hawaii after that. But we had the friends come out that like we were at the festival with, and like I've got some acid, they've got some acid, and like day one we're there, and like me and my buddy are tripping, and like I'm playing the Dead, and like this Dead song comes on, and it's like, take a look around, and I'm like inside the spaceship, like not like a spaceship in like the normal sense of a spaceship, but like everything's just so metallic, and they're like letting me look around whatever this foreign consciousness is, you know what I mean? And you know, but then like I'm playing the Dead, and some song came on where I figured it out. I'm like, oh my God, like Jerry Garcia like sold his soul, like without a doubt, dude. Like Jerry was like my God at the time, you know? And I was just like super into the Dead, and like there's a reason everybody's like following around, because they're like all on that wavelength, you know, like just like that's why they'd sell everything just to go from show to show. You think the music was good? Not if you weren't on acid, but if you were on acid, it would take you somewhere that you wouldn't believe, man. Like just on a ride through through time and space and eternity, you know.
They were like the priests.
Oh, absolutely, dude. And Jerry was my high priest. Jerry was like my Jesus, you know what I mean?
Right.
And Lucifer would have been, you know, the God, you know.
Right.
How interesting is it with the music though, too? Like you said that if you're sober, you're not really like,
right.
You can't, you're not feeling anything. You don't even like it. It's just whatever. You don't even think about it. But when you're tripping, it like,
it's speaking to you on another level.
That's like that's another tactic, right? That's something else that he uses. Is the music also plus.
No, he was the director of music, and that's like,
oh yeah, baby.
And that's like the Dead's like one of their like hit songs is like "Friend of the Devil," a friend of the devil is a friend of mine, take off running, but I'll take my time. Wow. Like they're in like another one of their songs is "A Mason's Son," like a Freemason's son, and like if you really just like start listening to like their lyrics, you're like, oh, that's what's going on here,
Right.
Yeah. So, like, anyways, I figured it out.
Hold that thought. I'm about to pee my pants. Give me one
Drinking
second.
that coffee,
hey, dude, I drank this whole cup. It was a really bad idea. Okay, hold that thought. And if you guys got to go too, go.
What was the thought?
That music. That the music leads into like this spiritual thing. Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I'll be right back. Oh my god.
All right, go. How you feeling?
Yeah, okay. There's just that one hard part to get through. Yeah, that was it. Cause that was like the realest that it ever was, like when I first like.
It was the first.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, I thought I was about to just run out the door.
Yeah.
I can just. Yeah, I don't want to say too much off air, but like I can just feel the drugs sometimes,
Wonder why that is. But I don't even want to.
I mean, it's on a spiritual note, like without a doubt, dude. I opened a door that's still cracked open, and there's there's still a crack in it, and I can't shut it. I wish I could just slam it shut, but it's just a little crack.
Yeah,
and it seeps through sometimes.
Yeah, especially talking about it, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh Lord,
look at me! I'm not even shaking that much.
Okay, I just want to go to the Father really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Father, send the Comforter. Send the Comforter, God. You're so good. Thank you, Lord.
Hey, man, that felt good. Yeah, I thought Ben was going to back in and be like, did they both fall asleep?
Feel better?
That was wild.
You drop your phone again in the bathroom, in the toilet?
No, but this would have made way more sense had I dropped my phone, because I was like shaking over here trying to hold it in. You had
to sit down.
yeah, exactly. Full circle. Oh my gosh. Okay. So
there's where we were. So like I figured it out, man. I was like, the Dead were playing, and I'm like, oh God, this is it. Like, you guys really are of the darkness. Like, this is it. I like throw my phone, and I'm like, fucking Jerry Garcia, And my dad's like living in a hut out back, He's like, what the hell's going on out there, And so we're like, me and my buddy are like talking a walk, and we're like not talking, but we're talking, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, yeah, man, like all that shit's real. Like, it's always been real. Like, like we're over here, and like, are you coming with us? And I'm like, he's like, there's some beautiful things to offer, like we can like almost stop time and like go to all these like other dimensions and everything else. He's like, but we're going to hell, like another Dead song, Hell in a Bucket, It's like we're going to enjoy the ride on the way down, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to enjoy the ride, but we're going to share the burden of it together. And that's like sharing your feelings and everything with each other, and your thoughts and everything, because you're there to comfort each other. Like, if anybody's ever headed to hell, that's probably the best way to do it. Like, they are there for each other. It's just, the wildest thing. They're going to have fun on the way down. You better believe it. But that's for eternity. Hell's for eternity.
Yeah. And so your buddy that was with you this whole time, this is what he was telling you telepathically.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So he knew this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know how long he'd been in, or like what. I don't know how. I mean, he wasn't the devil himself, obviously, right. But he was just like why wouldn't you if I got in, like, wouldn't I want to show people that I think are worthy? Like, what else is out there? Right. You know what I mean? Like, almost like a recruiter, a recruiter for the dark side.
And he chose it. He chose it.
But right? Like to be over there on that side though is like, it feels cold and loveless though. Like, it just feels I don't even know how to explain it. There are good parts to it, but when you're like over there like full time, like after your free trial runs out, it almost feels like prison, because like you can't reattach the umbilical cord to God. Like once you're, some people are like, well, you can't actually sell your soul because it's not yours. And I'm like, biblically, that almost sounds right. But what about when you your soul, not your humanity, you're right. Like as a human, you can screw up and make decisions, but when you leave your human body and make decisions as a soul to either like choose the evil one or choose the God who created you, like I don't know if you can come back from that or not.
So it's a choice, though.
Absolutely.
They're giving you a choice.
Absolutely.
They're not trying to force you in it.
No. I mean, like
you're totally making it willfully.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that interesting?
God, it was going to be a lot of fun. Let me tell you. So
that's interesting, because Dennis, I don't know if you've ever heard Driscoll say, what God creates, Satan like mimics.
Right.
Right.
And well, that's me and Dennis had this conversation. Because this is Lucifer setting up his heaven on earth for his believers, So this is like part of their this is like I got my free trial of Lucifer's heaven, like he tries to recreate everything God does. So he's like, oh, for my followers, if you truly want to serve me, then I'll set you up this heaven right here, but it ain't gonna last forever. It'll last close to what feels like forever, just because like you're leaving your body and like time is stopping and like rewinding and like just all these crazy things, But like, and it's so beautiful. Like obviously I'm sure some of it mimics heaven, like without a doubt. Like he can't create, he can only mimic the things of God.
I wonder if that's what Satan revealed to Jesus in the wilderness, in the desert for 40 days. Like when he said he'd look at all the nations, he like pretty much like showed him everything. Like here's everything. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I don't think it was set up yet back then. Honestly, this was like a long time coming. This was like when Albert Hoffman found LSD, he's like, I didn't find acid. Like acid chose me. This is like Satan's plan for a long time.
Oh, you don't think like the ancients were tripping on stuff?
I mean, they definitely were.
Yeah, because I think in I don't know, somewhere in the Old Testament it talks about like cutting, like if you cut.
I guess the gods they were serving were, like the Eleusinian mysteries and everything else. Like obviously they were doing some kind of psychedelics.
I mean, they were using ayahuasca.
Most likely shrooms too.
Yeah.
I mean, they were probably around.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, if you listen to Joe Rogan enough, you think that Christianity is just a mushroom cult.
Exactly.
So anyways, that went on, man. I'm like, okay, I still don't know what I want to do. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. I didn't know where I was going.
You didn't know which choice to make.
I didn't know which choice to make, And then I'm like, tell my girlfriend, I'm like, all right, you got to eat some acid and you're coming with us. And she's like, I can't. My mom loves Jesus. And she doesn't even know what she's saying. And she doesn't even know what the words she said actually meant. I mean, from maybe why she said it was like her soul like pouring out, like from a soul level. Maybe she knew what it was because like we weren't Christian, like what do you mean you can't? Your mom loves Jesus, like I'm like, oh, it's because like the Grateful Dead is the opposite of eternal life, like literally just in a word sense. So like we go to the grocery store that night, like once you start on acid, you can figure out how to just turn it on and off as you like please, like you just walk in and like things will be fine. Then I get like back home and like the trip turns back on. I'm like smoking some weed and like we're talking to telepathy and he's like pissed. He's like, that's mine too. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, the weed's mine too. And I'm like, as from like the devil's point of view, like it's of the darkness, and because I like start tripping again. And then like, I'm like, oh God. So then I'm like just trying to like talk myself out of this. Is like, okay, just make it stop. Just go to sleep. Just like pray until like whatever. I didn't even know.
The devil said this?
No, I mean, like the spirit of the devil, like the spirit of the devil is there. Like you're on his turf at that point, And like, there's like I have like a glass jar there that has like a woman with a trident and it like a tail, and like the tail, everything just starts like turning like different colors and like morphing, and it just starts to look like the devil, and they're like, like this is ours too, like you can't be smoking weed, I'm like, okay, I still am I still just gonna play dumb enough to like like just keep on thinking I'm just tripping, like after so many times, like is it just a trip or is this real? So
if you were to give into it, like you understand that it's real. Is that like the choice?
Oh yeah, then you have to make the choice. Yeah, I mean, once you know it's real, you got to make a choice.
Once you admit it's real.
Yeah. So the next day we hiked down into this valley, like the most sacred valley in all of Hawaii, and we show up and the Rainbow family's having a party down there. Like the Rainbow family is like part of the Grateful Dead family, and they're like, they travel like the world, like doing acid and just like just like going from one stop to the next. And like they like showed up down there, and like they actually like had a spot like a block down from my house at one point. And like when I hitchhiked, I'd be hitchhiking with them. They're like, yeah, we're Rainbow family. And like, that was it. Like with that time that I said in telepathy, like, we can all go to my house. They're like, yeah, we're coming to your house. And they just keep like getting closer and closer. And they're like about to just, they're like coming in on me from all around, like, and they're like,
so even though you said it telepathically to just the people in your little circle there at the time,
but it's like
they
worldwide.
took that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Dead family, Rainbow family. It's all the same thing. Like,
yeah,
my house was gonna
into their realm.
Yeah,
and they all
it was
picked
gonna
up on it.
My house was like going to be like a stop on like the great highway. Yeah. So that was. But we went down there that night. I still we eat some acid. Probably eat 400 mics, 500 mics, whatever. Tripping, but like whatever the valley like is like, I mean, you can't worship the created, like you worship the creator, but like God created this beautiful majestic thing, and like it tried to stop the synthetic drugs from working almost, like it wouldn't let a full trip come on. And like my buddy like got like sick and like couldn't see, and like it was like because we weren't supposed to be doing that there, for whatever reason. Like, this is God's beautiful place, and acid is synthetic, and without stimuli, like acid it's not, I mean, you could say it's for nature, some people do that, but like it's synthetic, and what we were in was God's like glory, his majesty, and like the acid just like wouldn't let it, whatever the connection point was, like the acid needed, it wouldn't let it connect
because of the location you're
yeah, dude, I don't know, it's it's sacred and to the Hawaiians even, but like I said, I don't worship the created, I worship the creator, but like it's his majesty there, so I don't know what that is. It's like that's like his fine artwork. You know what I'm saying? If you
did something that was non-synthetic, that it would have been different. Like if you did shrooms,
probably, yeah, honestly, yes. But I mean, the acid is like the family's main go-to. It's undetectable. You can have as much as you want and anywhere, and nobody's ever going to find it. You know what I mean? Like they called like pages full of like blotter paper, like Bibles, so that happened that night. And like the trip kind of, it didn't really ever kick in hard ever. And like, but at one point I like looked down the valley. It's probably like stretches a mile of like sand, and we're at the far end that we like hiked down to camp at. And there's just a row of like lights all the way down for a mile. And like, I don't know if it's angels or what it is, but like, it just scared me half to death. I'm like, went and hit my tent, like just trembling with fear. I'm like, what is that out there? And what is going on? Like, whew, wild times. So anyways, that night goes on, wake up the next morning, whatever, hike out of there. And like, my buddy's kind of like started to get like a shitty attitude, and I'm like, all right, dude, like he knows what's going on, and I'm still just playing dumber than a box of rocks. So we end up, this is like when things get serious. Like we end up we go to the other side of the island, and we like get an Airbnb, and we're like, I feel like I'm like almost on like this, I mean, I'm obviously, this is a spiritual journey, the whole thing, but like, so we stopped at this like, this dude's like tie-dye shop, and he was like telling me about like Jesus, and like, it's just very strange. Like, it was like, like obviously I was like getting set up to like make the ultimate decision. So like that night we eat some acid, and like we go inside, and and like then this time they're like, okay, like this is real, like which side are you going to choose? Like she like plays this video on her phone, and is like, it's pretty much just like a commercial for the dark side, pretty much. It's like, oh, it's not though. It's like, I don't know what the commercial is for, some festival or something. It's like talking about like auras and like all these things you can do and see, and I'm like tripping, sitting there listening to it, and I'm like, turn this off. They're like, what? And like we were playing some like Spangle or something, like the trippiest of the trip music, like the just taking you to the craziest places. I'm like, turn this shit off right now. They're like, what? And I'm like, put some Bob Marley on a Revolution, I'm done. And they're like, what are you talking about? They're like, we thought you loved this. And I'm like, I'm done, that's it, I don't want anything to do with this no more, get this away from me. And they're like, oh, it's like that. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, you know too much, we're gonna have to kill you. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, well,
they tell you this
telepathically. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why, like, no,
your friends. Or
yeah,
who?
It was him and his girl, so it was like my friend, like,
got it.
like, obviously you got to do what you got to do if you're living on that side,
Right.
So were you presented like a choice at that time?
Oh, absolutely. That was the ultimate decision. Like, it was real as real guy, They're like, dude, you know what's going on? Stop being a jackass. Like, stop right now. Like, here you go. Look, we're over here, like, and you can like see everything that's going on, like on that level, like everything's just different over there. Like I look this way and that's the dark side. And I can like speak telepathically and open my third eye forever. That's what all this is about, like opening your third eye. And like just have this communion with the darkness, but like you're never gonna be able to shut it off at that point. Like I don't think I would need acid anymore. You're just like on all the time.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's what like opening your third eye is. When people talk about it, I'm like, you don't really know what you're talking about,
Dude, it's so interesting how like a lot of what you're saying also comes up when I talk to people about the like their new age like spirituality.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I mean that's
They're
what it was. It was
all the same words.
Yeah,
like
no, I mean that's the ultimate of the new age. That's it right there. That's it. They want you to like whether however you open the door, I guess, like some people open it with acid, like I don't but like however you open the door. So anyways, all that's going on, and they're like and I'm like just thinking all these thoughts. I'm like, holy shit, I'm gonna write a book, I'm gonna tell everybody about this. And they're like, he looks at me with like just gritting his teeth and he's like, the fuck if you are. And I'm like, what? This is all telepathically, so and I'm like sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, what did I just say? I'm like, stop thinking so much, stop thinking, just like stop hearing my thoughts. And he's like, I'm just gonna have to kill you. And I'm like, what? I'm like, he's like, it's like either that or me and you're just gonna fight to the death right here. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm like, dude, I trained a lot, like I fought a lot back then, I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, bigger guy. Like I was like, all right. And like me and him were just like sitting in a room with the door shut. And I'm like, well, I guess we're going to fight to the death, like, yeah, exactly. And then, but then like the spirit of Jesus just like stepped in. He's like, would you, like the spirit of Jesus is not like about fighting your own battles, and he's like, I laid down my life, like all of like the Bible stuff that I was taught, like just like came back to me at that time,
Right then.
I mean, like, yeah, I'm just like, well, I mean, I always knew it, but I'm like, oh, all that stuff that my grandpa like said, wasn't that crazy, So I'm like, but I never seen a gun or anything. This is the thing. So like, he flew there. Like, did he actually get a gun from like? So there's been people hitchhiking in the back that were like Rainbow family, So I'm like, was there like a gun exchange somewhere? There's like the thoughts in my head, and I'm like, all right, dude. Well, we've been friends for a while, so like. I'm kind of scared. So like, if you're going to kill me, at least like, let me lay down and go to sleep first, So, but here I am. I woke up the next morning and sometimes I think that God gave me a second life outside of that reality. And I chose him and he just let me live through the time that the trigger was pulled and the time that bullet's going to strike the back of my brain, because I chose him.
Wait, what do you mean? Was there a gun that came out?
No, I didn't actually see it though.
Thinking?
Yeah, but I was like, dude, just let me go to sleep before you kill me, So
you thought you're going to go to sleep and die?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's what it was. So he just, because it was either you fight him or he's going to kill you. And then you said, I'm just going to go to sleep, hopefully, and then he pulls the trigger if there's a gun or something, whatever. However, that's what you're thinking, that he might, that's how he'll kill you, that he must have a gun. That's what you were thinking. So then I
just wake up. I just wake up the next morning though, like.
And what, that dude's gone?
No, they're still there. Like they're there on vacation. Like you just don't talk about stuff like that. I just had to be with them for another day. Like,
Was it awkward or anything in the real world?
I was awkward as it gets. Let me tell you. Yeah. Just like, I know I made the right decision, but like, obviously like I just like strung them along for so long that,
got it.
So all that.
Did you have an experience when you were younger, like where you actually put your faith in Jesus? Like,
nah, absolutely not. But like that night, like I heard
around it.
Yeah, but that night I heard we were staying at like this shared Airbnb kind of thing, and some like people came in like as all this was going on, and I'm like, at the time, I'm like, I know like they were there on the behalf of God, like God saved me from the darkness, and those people physically saved me from whatever like might have happened, and I just, had a peace about it. And, woke up the next morning and had to just, deal with them for a couple more days, and definitely didn't do any more drugs, tell you that, not then. Wow. So, Then my girl's mom comes out like 2 weeks later. Oh, I throw my acid in the trash. I had a bunch of acid, threw it in the trash,
Really?
And then I think my girl's mom comes like the next week. And, last night being with her, I'm like, all right, hey, you got to go home. I'm not coming. She's like, what? You're not selling the house? Come back home? I'm like, no, like, this is it. I love you, but we can't be together anymore. Like, sorry, like we're just on different paths. She didn't see it coming. Anyways, next day, go home, dig my acid out of the trash. I hadn't taken the trash to the dump yet. And I'm like, I got this, a couple hits of L in my pocket. I'm like, dude, maybe I did like it over there. Like it was so beautiful, so much fun. Like this regular reality kind of sucks, And so I'm like on the other side of the island, I have this acid with me, and like I still pick up on things telepathically, like when it's around, or if like dead family's around, or if like somebody's on some L or something like
even
that.
Even if you're not on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've opened this door and I just can't close it all the way. Like I got too close.
Even now?
Oh, dude. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But even now during this whole thing, like just me talking about it and like, yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But anyway, so I'm over there, sitting outside this natural food spot, and there's this dude sitting in front of me, and he's got like a Grateful Dead like patch on the back of his jacket. He's like a homeless guy, he's just like one of the people that are just transients, like just traveling on acid, whatever, and you can tell to some extent. And he's like talking to himself, and he's like, "Come on, brother, just come back. Everybody needs the good love, brother. You know we still love you over here." And he's saying this out loud because obviously I don't go on that side anymore,
Right.
And I'm like, y'all got me up. Like I'm throwing this acid in the trash right now. Like I am done.
Wow. So you didn't have a chance to take it again. You just
had it dude. Yeah, exactly. And like, and then I guess like a week before, or like before that experience happened, I went down to there's like this hippie beach. It's like a nude beach, and it's like very prevalent, like on like the family scene. Like there's a guy up top like selling mushrooms at the top. Like the cops won't go there. It's actually called Kahina in Hawaiian, which means hell. Literally means hell. And I'm like,
that's like Gehenna.
Yeah, exactly, with a K, but in Hawaiian it means hell. Right. So I'm like down there like hanging out, like, and it's just like me and like probably 10 other people, and it's like they're like definitely family, like they're of that family for sure. I can feel it, and this one dude, the weirdest out of them all, like, just looks like a straight tweaker, he's like, boy, you better pray to your angels. And I'm like,
jeez.
I'm like, I got to get out of here before I just end up getting killed, So I hitchhiked my way out of there,
Dude, okay, so when you say family, you mean like the Grateful Dead people?
Yeah, like dead,
group?
like dead family, rainbow family, like it's just called family, like
okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say like Illuminati and everything, like it's just all a branch off the greater Luciferian structure,
Dang, so they just like brand Satanism different.
Yeah, I mean,
like they rebrand it.
Yeah, I mean, just as like New Age. Yeah, exactly. Pretty honestly, like. Well, because like that was my thing. I didn't care about money or power or fame,
Right.
like Satan's got something different for everybody, I'm like, I don't give a shit about being rich. I wanted to like literally like be not homeless, but like just like live out of a backpack and just like travel the world, like that was my thing. I'm like, man, I don't need material attachment.
Dude,
like,
so he's got something for everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
But it all connects to like the same evil source.
Yeah, exactly.
And it could be, dude, even the connection point, the gateway could be something chemical, like a drug. It could be some kind of like spiritual thing, because people could like, they don't need to take drugs to connect to this stuff. They could like have rituals and do it. You know what I'm saying?
Meditation.
But it all connects to the same evil source, man. That's wild.
Let me see. Next experience on the calendar here. I come back to Florida after a while, and like I'm still like drinking and partying, and like I wasn't fully sanctified. Like obviously I knew Jesus saved my soul from all that, but I was like, well, I was a super like big pothead too. I like had dreads and like grew weed for a living for a while, and I thought I thought I could still do that and still love the Lord, which I obviously did at the time, but like, sanctification is a process. Like, the Lord will let you know like what you shouldn't be
praying
doing.
to him at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. Like reading scripture, man, I'd get stoned and read the Bible, you know what I'm saying? So like, I'm like, I like got super into like reggae, and I'm like, this is God's plan. Like, like for the healing of the nations, like, like took that route about it, So like I come home, and me and my buddy, who, not the buddy that was out in Hawaii, but like a good friend that I'm like still friends with to this day. Like he was doing all the drugs with us, but I don't think he ever caught on. Straight up, like he had some like I seen him have some like crazy bad trips while we weren't. Like I don't know, like his soul just like wasn't like willing to hear it. Like sure, he's seen some stuff, but I don't think he like got to the root of the evil, you know. So like me and him were together one night, and we were just like drinking. He's like, come on, man, let's get some L. I'm like, all right, sure, whatever, dude, I'll do some acid. And shit, same thing, man. Like I just got like backed into a corner and like not like in a literal sense, but like they're like, okay, you're coming with us to the darkness, and he like starts like turns off all the lights in the house and like starts on like this ritual, and I can just like feel myself like just being trapped in, you know, and like I'm like, turn the lights on, I'm done with this shit, you know, like, and then like obviously I still had to ride that trip out, which was fine. Like I still. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some cool stuff, you know, like I wasn't going back down the path of darkness. So
is the cool stuff that you see and experience, is that like before, or is it like a different room? Can you go back and forth from like that like,
well, I mean, if you're like turned like super on, like everything's on the grid and it's like metallic looking and you can see everybody's auras, but then like I feel like there's just sometimes they don't like let you all the way in, and like
so it's not up to you, it's up to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where you go. I mean, I'm sure eventually you could have full access, like I could have, you know, but like they let you see what, when I say they, I mean I guess just like the spirit of Lucifer or whatever it is, you know. So yeah, so I do that, and I'm like, all right, I'm really done with this stuff. Like I'm just, you know, I'm done. So I was done for a while, you know, like kept smoking weed, and then I went back to Hawaii, and I was still like hippie-ish to an extent. Like I started dabbling. Like my buddy is just only speaks in metaphysics, and
what do you mean?
It's just a joke I make about him, because like normal people would just think he's like absolutely crazy. He's from South Carolina, and like I always tell him he has to like live in Hawaii. He's like 30 years old, or like 45, doesn't have like a phone like or anything, and he just like is just like the hippiest like metaphysical person you'll ever meet, and he's always just astounded that I understand what he's talking about, you know. He's like I've had to learn all this stuff and you just know it, and I'm like, I don't know, man, you know. But anyways, he got like super into like ayahuasca at the time, you know, and I'm like, I prayed about it, and I'm like, I don't think this is really evil. I don't think it's going to lead me down a bad path. You know, at the time, like, I don't advise this to any Christian nowadays. So, you know, me and him, he helped me make some ayahuasca, and like, I'm like, I don't need a shaman. I don't need anybody. It's like just me at my house, you know, like I don't need anybody. Like I've done enough drugs. Like I don't need a shaman. Right. So for things being beautiful, man, like that was another thing. Like I was saved at the time, and like I prayed about it, and God was like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll protect you, you know, from the darkness. You know, obviously typical ayahuasca experience, like puking your brains out, you know, just purging everything. And then I had like this experience where I lived my whole life from the other person's view in front of me. So like it was like, wow. It was forever and it was never, like, you know, it might've happened in 10 seconds. It might've taken an hour. I don't know, you know, but like, it just showed me that everything that happened to me was for a reason. Like God is the potter and I am just his mold, you know, like some of those like deep places and deep cuts and wounds are there for a reason. And like, however that other person got to that place in their life, like God led them there to, you know, shape me and whatever other reasons he had. But like, it just gave me like a profound, like the forgiveness of Jesus. I just stopped after that. I was like, I don't hold no grudges against nobody for anything ever again. You know, like whatever, dude, everything you do is just shaping me into like what God is calling me to be.
So you're having this spiritual experience while you're on ayahuasca.
Yeah. I'm like laying in my bed and like, I don't know, like I said, it could have been a minute. It could have been hours. Like it was just like me, like feeling every instance of my life from the other person's point of view, like people that had wronged me or like things like that. You know, it was just like, wow. I knew I was loved by God because like, he's shaping me to be whatever he wants me to be in his image, you know, like I don't have any hate for those people, whatever, man. If he was going to kill me, you got hard feelings, great, whatever, dude. I don't care. Like, you know, like I am who I am. And that's what God's trying to get me to be. Yeah. And then, it's cool though, because like after that, like that experience happened, like, you know, I'm still like tripping and like everything's just like breathing and like, you know, you just feel at one with nature and everything like that. And there's a giant lynx that just comes up to my window. There's no big cats in Hawaii. Like this is all just like a hallucination or like the spirit realm that they let me see. Or not they, or, you know, God let me see, whatever, you know. But that's like really, the next day I'm like, that was so weird. Like that was just like a giant like lynx beside my bed. And I looked it up, and in Native American culture or like ancient like Central American, whatever, you know, it says that the lynx represents the keeper of the secrets. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't you know? You know what I mean? Like I had no preconceived notion about lynx or anything like that. It was just like, that's what God was telling me. He's like, yeah, dude, you are the keeper of the secrets. Like you know things, and it's okay. Like you don't have to like bear this burden yourself. And
what led you as like a Christian to do the ayahuasca?
Dude, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Dude. I feel like I could still like do things back then, and like I wasn't as convicted. Like, you know, I'm a lot more rooted in my faith. Like I said, I don't advise any, you know, believers to do such a thing, but for me, it was the right path.
Oh, geez. Was that back in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, that was it. That was in Hawaii.
And then what's going on now?
Dude, it doesn't.
Are you going to church at this time?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, maybe like right after that is like when I really got involved in a church out there. I think, you know, I stopped dabbling after that. I'm like, Terrence McKenna used to say, like, or was it Terrence McKenna? I think like he's like, once you like get the message, just hang up the phone, you know? So like, yeah, I'm like, I found everything I was looking for. I found God. I found forgiveness. Like I don't need to search in the dark anymore, you know?
So I'm trying to understand. So you were faced with a choice, and the choice was to go to this dark side with these people, knowing that you're going to end up in hell.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then, sorry, we had something on the screen, Ben. So you could have made a choice to go that side, but you didn't. So you chose God, essentially. Did you have like a discussion at all with him or anyone else? Or
you know what? Let's just rewind a second here. Let's go back to see how I knew the chronology was going to get messed up a little bit. There was a time after the festival, like after I seen it for the first time, that we went to this show. For the first band was called Lettuce, and the second was called Break Science. So like looking at it now, it's like, let us break science. I'm like, oh, that's very fitting, you know, let us break science. So anyways, I did a bunch of mushrooms there that night, and like my buddy and his girl were like pointing me to the dance floor, like, those are your people. Those are like our people. Like, you know, I'm like, okay. So I go out there and I just like fall into like a pool of like purple bliss, you know? And I'm like, oh God, yeah, these are our people. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm here. Good to see you guys. And then like this ball of light just like comes up to the window, and I don't know if it was God or Jesus or an angel, but they're like, why are you still running with the devil? And I'm like, what? And it's just like, why are you running with them? You're mine. And I'm like, I don't know, you know, and like just like scurried out of there. I think we all left after that, but
did the other people see it too?
I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
And that was just another experience, like another trip.
Yeah, exactly.
And you believe that this was like the spirit of God or something.
Oh, absolutely. He's like, why are you running with the devil? Like, that's who that is. And I'm like,
because the devil wouldn't say that about the devil. Right?
Exactly. You know?
He wouldn't like, doesn't Jesus say that?
A kingdom divided will fall, you know?
Right. So, okay. So I'm trying to understand how you got to like this, to the Jesus side of things. So like, because
if the devil was real, and like I knew that was the devil, like that's how I figured out it was Jesus. Like, because if Lucifer is real, then like that makes the opposite real. You know, you can't have one without the other. So I didn't find God by finding God. I found God by finding the devil, you know, and you know, some people like talk about how like, you know, you only like look to God in your darkest moments. And I'm like, yeah, I guess most people don't like, most people aren't face to face with Lucifer himself. Like, you know, like bow down to me or depart from me. You know what I mean? So
like you kept getting brought up into his like playground.
Exactly. But it's just like, it's like a free trial though. You know, you only get to play for free for so long before, you know, you're going to you got to pay. Yeah, exactly. Like, he's willing to give a lot of people a free trial, you know?
Yeah.
But when we were all like talking to telepathy that night that I thought I was going to get killed, you know, like the last time, they're like, they're like, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to believe you. You were on drugs.
That makes so much sense.
Nobody will ever believe you. I'm like, yeah, all right. So maybe you don't have to kill me then. Maybe somebody will believe me. I don't know.
Wow.
Like I said, I'm
so interesting. They got you either way.
Yeah, exactly. Like me putting out this podcast, some people in my ear and be like, dude, this dude was on a lot of acid,
Right.
Like,
But still, your
I mean, people can always deny this stuff as just like hallucinations in your mind, right? But then you've got other people, doctors like I think it's the Queen's College out in England that are studying the effects of like long-term DMT trips. And so they're doing like intravenous drips of DMT, and people are lasting, they're having trips for like over an hour. And what they're doing as part of this study is they're documenting.
Not they like mapping the space inside of there. Like it's a real place. Like they're having shared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The people that are in the test have no relationship to one another. They don't know each other. They don't communicate with each other. And people are coming back and describing the same like geography. You know what I mean? The same structures, the same monument. And they're literally mapping the territory that these people are transcending to. And they're also mapping and cataloging the entities they're talking to. Okay. And they physically look the same. They have similar messages. They'll even have experiences where one of the dudes is having a trip and he's engaging with one of the entities, and the entity asks about one of the other guys in the test. And he doesn't even know who the guy is.
Well, he comes out and he's like, who's James?
Yeah. And they're like, how do you know about James? Like the doctor writing down is like, how do you know about James? He's like, oh, because blah, blah, blah told me about him.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying? So, dude, more and more, I think like the scientific community, right? And the scholastic academic people, more and more, they're starting to show that there is something else beyond this realm, And interestingly enough, it's accessible through like chemical manipulation of the mind, And it, like you brought up Rogan earlier, and I listened to a lot of his stuff too.
Yeah, I listen to every show. So
dude, his saying, and he's not Christian, he's just a guy that has a lot of experience and stuff like this. And he says he thinks the mind is a meat antenna to the spiritual world. I kind of believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of believe that there's something that connects our three-dimensional conscious physical body. And I think it's the mind that connects us to like the spiritual realm. Because even in the Bible, we know this as Christians, it says that we have like a spirit, we have a soul, right? And that somehow interacts with this body. But then if you like, I was in senior living for 15 years. I worked in that space. I've seen so many people whose minds are either through dementia or like injuries or something, their minds are shot. And so they're just like a meat suit.
There's nothing there. It's just straight to the spirit.
There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's a break to the spirit. You know what I mean? Wow. It almost seems like there's a break from the physical and that spiritual dimension. So when you throw in some chemicals in there that have been, listen, that guy that created LSD, he doesn't say he came up with it on his own. He says it found him.
Exactly.
How many other, like, look back at all the other like ancient religions, or
like,
even the
how
priests.
did they find ayahuasca? Like, one plant talked to the other. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly. I think to make ayahuasca, it's like 14 ingredients. You know what I mean? So you go back far enough, none of these people came up with this stuff. It was all given to them from this like dimension. Because if Satan, he's so smart, like he's so strategic in this, give people their false sense of like Eden. Okay. Just mimic what God created, mimic what he intended for mankind, give them a false heaven and a false sense of Eden, and they'll want to be there with him. And they'll reject Jesus.
Absolutely.
They won't want you. Jesus is more than likely not going to give you like these. He might miraculously from time to time give you experiences. Okay. That's up to him. But when we're the ones forcing it, when we're the ones trying to get up there and ascend and interact with that spiritual realm, it's more than likely always going to be bad. Because God doesn't want us to engage on our terms. He wants to engage with us on his terms. You know what I'm saying? And our key to the afterlife and to that realm is Jesus. So if you're going to that stuff without Jesus, you're in the devil's playground, baby. And he's going to play. He's game.
Oh, he
He's
is,
gay.
and like, but the problem is, like, I open that door, and sometimes it still happens. And now that I'm not welcome over there, so like, like the most recent one, like to where I really like came back and like dedicated my life to God. A couple of years ago, I was like back to fighting Muay Thai, and like God told me that like that's my idol, and that I need to give it up, And I just kept like pushing towards this fight I had coming up. And God's like, no, seriously, dude, put it down. This is an idol. This is what you're worshiping. And I'm like, no, I don't have to. And then I don't, just in a spiritual sense, something happened somehow where like I was talking to the fallen again. And I'm like, okay, well, how about we just like fight for it? If I lose this fight, I'll kill myself and you win,
Wow.
So my next Muay Thai fight, I lost, And I'm like, oh shit, was I really like talking to the devil again? Like, was any of that real, or am I just, but then like the whole time home, I just like keep seeing like symbols of like third eye symbols and stuff. And like, I'm like, oh God, I screwed up. I really did it again. Like I made a bet with the devil and now I'm going to have to pay up, So like I get home and like it really like the drugs just start kicking in. I feel like I am in a full blown acid trip, like body, like,
really?
You didn't even take anything.
Absolutely not. No. Like body, like sometimes like when you do a lot of acid, like you get like body shakes, like you're, cause it attaches to your central nervous system and like you're like, you kind of start to like lock up, and like, and it starts happening. I'm like, oh shit, I got to pay the piper, and like, so then at that point, the TV starts having a conversation with me, like literally, like, cause it's just everything they say. Like I'll be thinking something in my head and like they respond to it through the TV, It's like, like I said, that might sound crazy and schizophrenic, but like the devil, Lucifer, like it is the prince of the air, So like whatever he can do through airwaves, he's doing it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I like, but it just came over me though, like that being over there on that side when you're not welcome and you're not of that side is like, just feels like raw sin. Like sometimes I like to think of it as like, obviously I've never felt what Jesus took on the cross, but like just raw sin. You just feel like the most evil, like you're just filled with demons. And I'm like, this is gonna have to stop or I'm gonna blow my brains out. So I would rather be dead than have to feel like that. I hand my like 4-month-old daughter to my wife, and she's like, I'm like just like running, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going upstairs to blow my brains out." And she, and she literally had to like stop me from running up the stairs. She is like tackling me, like I have a loaded gun by my bedside, and I literally was just going to go up there and just blow my brains out.
Wow. Jeez, man.
Yeah. So then like she like we just start like praying to Jesus, to just like stop it, and that's the only way to get it to stop is to like have faith in my Lord that he is like my protector,
Wow.
And then stuff like that happens all the time though. Like I will have dreams where I eat a bunch of acid and I wake up tripping and I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like, just like, and my wife can like see it too. She's like, my pupils are just giant and I'm like, just like shaking and like, I can feel the acid inside of me, like, and and the only way to like, I used to like try to fight it off with like go get some ice and like put it on my balls, just try to like shock me back to reality, and like
wake up,
like that stopped working, and like the only thing I can do is like just pray and listen to worship music and just like just like ask for God to just like protect me and just like stop the darkness,
Wow, dude, that's interesting that before you were using music to like take you into that space and now you use
dude, I was listening to some worship one night while it was like happening, and it's Graves into Gardens, and I was like, I was like tripping. I'm like, God, this is so good, like even then, yeah.
Do you think that so do you think that those trips come back? Because I know sometimes they say that sometimes
it sits in your brain.
Like that, it could get stuck in your, like,
man,
fat.
it's usually it sits in your spinal cord with LSD,
or
but but with man, it's always on some spiritual stuff though. It's like when I'm not listening to the will of God, God corrects me with that. Like the other day, that's why I'm on the podcast right now. The other day, my mom was in jail and she's like, man, I've watched her like be demon filled and like speak in other tongues and just like, sometimes I'm not sure if she didn't sell her soul. Like she's like had some like voodoo witchcraft like put on her. And like one time she calls me and she's like, the demons are in my house and you better start praying because they want you to, and then like calls me the next day and she's like, man, they got me. Like they did something to me. I can't undo it. I'm going to kill myself, just like, so I've seen this like woman, like, you know, go down that path. Right. So this is like, but I still try to help her because I feel bad. I'm like, if you could just find the Lord and just like, but I've been helping her recently and I like wasn't trying to help her spiritually. I was just trying to like throw money at her and like, you know, and she got locked up for a DUI, whatever, you know, and she's like, I'm like, I'm not bailing you out. Like, you just need to sit. And I prayed about it and God's like, just let her sit, you know, like this is her punishment, you know, like this is, but I bailed her out anyways. So God's like, dude, I told you not to do that. Like, you're not listening to what I have to say. So I'm on the phone with my aunt and like my daughter's watching YouTube, you know, and like in the middle of the YouTube song, a Grateful Dead song just comes on out of nowhere as I'm talking to my aunt about my mom. She's like, oh, what's up with your mom? And as soon as she says mom, I look at the TV and I'm like, oh, hell no. And like the acid, I can feel it starting to kick back in. And like I see Jerry's face at the beginning of it. And I'm like, God, this is such a beautiful song. Get out, you know, just like, it just like turn the TV off as fast as I can, like hang up the phone with my aunt, you know, like
just stop talking about it, stop looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I knew what I did wrong. Like I didn't listen to God, and this is how he corrects me. He corrects me he keeps me in line with, you know, I mean, he lets, like, look at Job, like he lets the devil do what he needs to do for God's bidding sometimes too, you know, but then like me and my wife are talking, you know, she's like, okay, well, what do you need to do to like get back right with God? I'm like, okay, I need to like get my story out there and I like need to do this and this, you know? So yeah. But there's all kinds of those instances. One time I gave somebody a high five and I felt the acid as soon as I did. And like I had to fight off a trip for like an hour and a half at dinner with some friends after that. You know, I'm just like trying not to act like a weirdo. But as soon as I like touched
in the family,
I don't know what they were doing. I was just at the beach and like they were just like acting goofy. And I'm like, they're like, oh, hey, man. And I gave him a high five. And as soon as I touched his hand, I said, oh no, you know, just,
and you were totally like, fine,
absolutely. Yeah.
And then this just happens. Like it just switches on.
Yeah. Door opened.
The door opened.
Yeah. And then there was another time after like all those experiences happened where I was like, I'm bored. Maybe I want to go back to the darkness. That lasted for like a year, you know. I ended up getting stuck in like a K-hole at a Bass Nectar show. And
can you explain that? What that
what are these words?
Yeah, ketamine.
Okay.
This is probably like 4 years ago. And like, I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. I am bored with reality. Like, take me back. So like I started doing like MDMA again. Like that would bring me close sometimes, you know, but it's like, they don't want me back. Like even the dark side knows who I am. They don't want me anymore. Like I'm not welcome over there. And I thought I like maybe would be. Like they know who I am. Like they know I am a child of God. So I got stuck in a K-hole at Bass Nectar where I did too much ketamine. I'm just like stuck on the floor. Like I've got a bunch of MDA in my pocket that would bring me out of it, which is like usually what you do, but I can't move my body to get the drugs out of my pocket to eat to like bring me back up. So I'm just like there, like they have like at those shows, man, it's nothing but the drugs, you know, like ketamine is just running rampant there. So there's like people like help team, like a Bass Nectar help team that like took me to like the medical ward, you know, and I'm like, and the artist that was playing was LS Dream at the time. And he was just about to like start in on something like opening a door to like another world, you know? And they're like, yeah, dude, you don't belong here anymore. And they're like, if you really want back in, like you're going to pledge your allegiance to Lucifer and you're going to have to be gay. I'm like, what? Well, this happened in telepathy, you know?
Bro, that escalated so quickly.
Yeah, I know, but like, it's crazy though. Cause that's like the ultimate blaspheme to God. You know what I'm saying? Like, is to like, that's just screwing up God's perfect creation. You know, they're like, yeah, dude, you want back in? You really want to pledge your allegiance? Like you're going to be gay. I'm like, don't think so. Get me out of here. Like I'm done.
You're like, I've got limits.
And then after that, man, I was at a house party one night.
Wow.
I was at a house party one night. I'm like, dude, who's got some K? I'm like all drunk, you know, did too much ketamine again, got stuck on the couch. And this time was like one of like as close as it was to the time that I did that acid in Hawaii. And like, you know, I thought I was going to die, you know? So they're like, dude, you don't belong on this side. And like, I'm like sitting there, like not all the way in a K-hole, but like, I feel like ketamine is just like acid light. There's like light beer and there's like acid light and it's just like ketamine, you know, like it doesn't last as long. It still take you somewhere. So I'm like sitting on the couch and they play me this whole song about like what reality is and how. Have you ever heard the song by Bizzle that just like explains the gospel?
Bizzle?
Bizzle, yes. Do you know who that is?
I'm gonna write that down.
Oh, dog. He's like one of the greatest Christian rappers ever. He's like an OG in the game.
Okay.
But I think that's what it was. Like I tried to find the song and I heard it one time, but he explains the gospel from start to finish. And they're like, why do you keep coming back here? You know the truth about the game. Stop doing this. You know, like if you think you're gonna get out of here and like be free, you don't belong over here. Like we're all going down. So just like like leave us alone. Like let us enjoy our rebellion in peace. Like stop being a jackass, you know? And then I'm sitting there, like they play me the whole song and then like, I still don't understand. They're like, do you need me to play the song again? I'm like, yeah, sure, I guess, whatever, you know? And like, it just explains the whole gospel from start to finish, you know? And they're like, this is what it is, you know?
So they're not trying to get you to come.
No, I don't. At that point, like I could make the decision to go back over there, I think, but it wouldn't even be good because I'm pretty sure I'm just so hated over there that it wouldn't matter. Like I'm scared of like taking that step back in because they all hate me and they just like shun me and I'd be stuck on the dark side and they don't even like me. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think you could go back, bro.
Yeah, I don't think I can either.
I don't think you could go back. And the reason is because it says nobody can. What's the
once you take like the mark of God, you know, like there's no undoing it.
Nobody can snatch you from my hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. That includes yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes the forces that you're up against. You know what I'm saying? And that's the power of Jesus. Like that's why they hate you so much. They don't want you over there.
No, they don't. But it's just crazy because like they've implanted so many lies. Like while I was like in those spaces, like, you know, Lucifer is the father of lies. Like, and they just implanted so many lies. Like this reality is not real. You're stuck in a simulation. The only way out of here is for you to kill yourself. Like a big one is like, I think I'm just like living through a Grateful Dead show sometimes. Like I get stuck in this like psychosis of like, well, man, I probably took like 1,000 hits of acid and I'm just like in the crowd at a Grateful Dead show and I'm just like living through the songs and like eventually the set's gonna end. I'm gonna wake up, you know, like when I die, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the things I deal with on a daily basis, you know. It's like, but then I have to like reroute myself in faith and be like, no, Jesus created this reality, like this, you know, God, you know, Jesus, the Trinity, whatever, you know, like that. Those lies are not real. And it's tough sometimes because it feels really real. I've felt some things that feel like that's what's really going on while I was tripping sometimes, you know. Sure.
So when you're tripping, you'll experience stuff that kind of validates
like
those lies.
dude, like even when I did the ketamine the last time I was talking about, like after they played me the song, I felt like after it was all done, I was like sitting there and then it's like, then it felt like I was back at a Dead show for a minute, like after all that, you know. And then but then like the clock in front of me, instead of saying the time, it just said sin on it. It just said SIN, you know. I don't know, like it was like 5-1
exactly,
but it just said straight up sin, and I was like, I could feel the weight of sin at that time, you know. And I'm like, yeah, no thanks.
That's interesting. So you've got these like lingering effects of reality.
Yeah, it's rough, man, because the devil is the father of lies, and like he implanted some of the deepest lies you could ever like think of with me. And like, man, just my psyche on a daily basis is a lot to deal with sometimes.
it's almost like, okay, so if the spiritual realm is real and our souls exist there, and then when you do stuff like this, you engage in the spiritual realm, then it's hard to shut that door between the spiritual and the physical. You know what I mean? So maybe that's why there was like lingering effects are still around.
Oh, absolutely. Like, dude, I opened a door that I opened too far and I tried to slam it shut, but like the hinges got a little rusty. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, the door was open because like I opened it so far that I shouldn't have been out there doing those things. And like, so now I just like get the residuals of it occasionally, but it keeps me in line though. Like, I said something a couple weeks ago at like my disciple group. I'm like, I almost need a bad trip here soon because I'm getting complacent. I'm like, I really just want to smoke some weed and freak out so I remember that God's real. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
And then I just had that bad trip last week when the Dead started playing out of nowhere, you know? So I'm like, I guess I got what yeah. I guess I got what I was praying for.
Yeah, bro, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, as bad as it sucks, like it keeps me on the right path.
Dang. Do you think that there's people that, okay, so for whatever reason, you are in that world, okay, in that dimension even, and you'd enter in of your own free will and go in there and you have to make this decision. Do you think that, you said that it was, you started remembering or thinking about things you've heard about from your past, from when you were in church and about Jesus and about, right? And that kind of to some degree, that's kind of what brought you out or helped you make that decision that like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be yours. Do you think there's people that don't have that kind of background in Christianity and they don't have the ability to make that choice?
That's a very good question. I don't know if you feel the Spirit of the Lord. Obviously, there's going to be people out there that like listen to this podcast and they're like, well, you had a preconceived worldview from the time you were born. Right. So like, obviously, whatever the drugs did to you, like just brought up all these things that were planted deep down in you, you know, but like you listen to the Dead songs and they say who they are, you know what I'm saying? Like you can mask it as much as you want, but yeah, you're probably right. There's some people that maybe wouldn't feel the same way, but I mean, at some point you have to feel that it's dark. And like the kid that I was doing all this with, like his dad knew the Bible inside and out, and he was raised in the church. Wow. So he knew, you know, like he's like, I know the Bible probably better than you at the time, you know, like he was raised in it. So,
and he just chose, he chose the dark side.
Well, you know, I seen him for the first time like 7 years, you know, from a distance the other day. Yeah. And it was probably, we were actually at group Dennis. It was like probably like 6 months ago. I'm like, oh, hey, like waved. You probably didn't even know it was me. I'm like, I don't want to open that can of worms.
He goes to the same church as you now?
No. I don't think he goes to church. No, they're definitely still into the whole
like
fest.
The park?
Yeah.
Okay.
We meet at the park. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. I seen him. I'm like, oh God, never want to have to see this person again in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, that's wild. So, do you think that some of the people, I've thought for a long time, and I'm not saying this across the board, but I've thought for a long time that a lot of like the psychological or like mental illnesses that are diagnosed nowadays also have some kind of like spiritual root to them.
Oh,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean? And I'm not saying everybody, I'm not saying that at all. You know, I think there's real like mental illness out there, but do you think that it's possible that a lot of the people that are schizophrenic as a result of drug use are just
that door just got blasted open, you know,
they can't close it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like
it makes sense,
dude.
It does make sense.
When I got done with that last like ketamine thing that I was talking about, you know, when I was like walking home that morning, like I could like I know what it must feel like to be schizophrenic, because like I had the voices with me, and like, you know, like God's like, yeah, you could have been stuck like this forever, you know. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, I know what those people are going through.
Wow. Dude, yeah, so even when you said the guy that I don't know if he was homeless or whatever, but that told you like, hey, come back. We want you back. Yeah,
exactly. He's just like, everybody else is like, dude, that dude's schizophrenic. He's over there talking. He's over there talking to himself. Well, that's the thing, dude. I can't, when that starts happening, like I will like literally see homeless people and they'll be like talking to me though. Like I am like, I'm sure I'm like hated on the dark side, obviously.
It's like a spiritual hive mind.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Absolutely. And it's like the greatest thing ever though, because like those guys, like if they're going down, like I'm sure nobody gets busted because nobody talks, you know what I mean? Like you can't flip on the fam because you can't talk about it. Because like if you did, first off, I don't think the words would even be able to come out of your mouth. Second off, you would just be like shunned in Lucifer's world without God. Could you, that's what hell is, obviously, you know, like he could do whatever he wants to you over there. Like you don't belong to God anymore. Like you cut yourself off, you know?
Right. Dude, that's wild, man. That's like a whole new paradigm for me now, where it's like, dude, these drugs kind of like you're saying, they're a gateway to this realm, and then people have to make a decision whose side they're going to be on. I wonder, bro, if like everybody has to make that decision, okay? Or if for some people that opportunity like doesn't present itself.
I don't know, because that seems like a real issue. Like people like go through like their mundane lives and just like don't ever choose Jesus because they don't have to make a choice. You know what I'm saying? But it was like when that first time I left my body, it felt like I'd been there before and I knew all those people. Wow. And I was just like, sounds like blasphemy, like reincarnated, but you know, I mean, the Bible doesn't touch on that, and I don't know if that's real or not, but it felt like I'd been there before, and like I like hung out with all of them.
Familiar.
Oh, the most familiar. I'm like, oh, hey, so and so, I haven't seen you in a while. Like, you know, like, oh, they're like, oh, hey, you're back. I'm like,
and who are these people that you're saying you haven't seen for a while?
Just I don't know. They were just all at a music festival, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, I don't think it has to be reincarnation. If you're tapping into the spiritual realm,
yeah, I guess our souls knew each other.
We're all we're all
yeah, we knew each other in heaven before the fall, I guess, you know.
I don't know about before the fall. I'm just saying, like, the spiritual realm probably knows itself, not like individually, like we know each other individually. The spiritual realm beings might just know each other, like in a way that we can't comprehend, where it's like they just know everything, not everything, but they know everything within that realm. You know what I mean? So it's like, maybe it wasn't that you, I don't believe in reincarnation. But maybe since you're tapping into that spiritual realm, maybe you're tapping into some kind of like, common like knowledge in that space. You know what I mean?
Or they're out of time or something. And then because they're out of time, maybe they, that's how you know, like the next person or something, or I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It's very hard to explain because these are, dude, we talked about this, Dennis, with Peck. We're trying to put 3D words to like
to 12D, you know, to infinite D, you know, it doesn't translate.
It doesn't translate, man. And that's why even in the Bible, when you hear these guys as like visions, or John who sees the throne room of heaven, or Ezekiel who sees the beings, and he's like, it's like this and it's like that. It's as if it were this, because he keeps using like and like and like because he doesn't know how to describe it. So he's trying to like associate it with what he knows, what 3D language he had, you know? And so what do you think, so obviously you believe in the spiritual realm, right? Obviously you've had experiences with it. What do you think about, you mentioned earlier that like, it was almost like you were in a spaceship at some point. You also mentioned something about like aliens at some point, or it felt like aliens, or like,
but it felt like it wasn't natural, you know?
Did it feel like spiritual, like demonic, or did it feel actually like, I don't know how to put it, like physical, like interdimensional kind of beings, you know? Because some people make the distinction. I don't really think we need to. Some people make the distinction between demonic and aliens. I think they might actually be like the same thing, you know? And so when you said that you felt like you were in a ship, why would the spiritual realm have a ship?
Head on.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
I think that's what it is, though. It is a spaceship, you know, and I don't want to go. It is real. It's not just
spiritual.
Yeah.
Like whimsical, you know what I mean? That's why. What's up?
Jesus help.
Yeah. Amen, man. Amen. And so when this stuff's like in the news,
we take a break.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Let's take a break. Just breathe.
Yeah. Man, deep stuff, bro. Deep stuff. It's so real. It's more real than this is real. You know what I mean? And I think it's...
But Jesus is the only way.
Bro, the only way. The only way. There's a battle going on between good and evil, okay? And we're experiencing it in the third dimension, but
Jesus always wins.
He absolutely wins. He absolutely wins. And that's the thing.
But then why do we have to experience the battle that's going on?
Because, bro, we're in the third dimension. The third dimension has time. God doesn't just win the battle in the spiritual realm and then end all reality in the third dimension. It's still playing itself out in time. You see what I'm saying? He could win the victory spiritually over Satan in the spiritual realm. That could already be done because he's outside of time, but it still has to play itself out for us here on earth because he created time. He doesn't just end it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's because he had a plan from the beginning, and it's playing out, and he's not going to, stop his own plan, right? So he made a decision, and we're living that now. We're living through that now. And I think that what we need to stop and just realize is the seriousness of it, right?
For sure.
Like the depth of it. This is not just stories about some dude tripping. This is about, what's really out there, and that we dabble in and we play in and we pervert.
And we think it's Jesus to my dying day, like there's no turning back is the problem.
Dude, amen to that. There is no going back. Because what's the other option? Not Jesus? Well, you know what not Jesus is.
It's dark.
And you don't want that. You don't want that because you've seen it. You've seen it firsthand. And all these other guys that are just like playing around and that are like, dude, you should do it. You should try it. It's amazing. Bro, you have no idea what you're freaking doing. You have no idea what you're doing. And you just think it's fun. You think it's cool because it's different, because you see cool shapes and lights and colors, and right?
Yeah. At some point you got to make decisions.
Yeah, man.
And we choose
Jesus.
And his blood covers us.
Amen, bro.
His blood covers us. He went to the cross and died for a purpose, to have victory over sin and death, and to bring us into his kingdom and to live with us for eternity, and for us to live in him for eternity.
Yeah, man.
Where he keeps us in peace forever and joy. And he did this willingly, and he loves us so much, and he wants us to be in his light. It says walk in the light, Amen. Right? In John.
Yeah.
And not in darkness, but in light. And darkness has no place in the light. And we have that opportunity. Everyone who's listening here has this opportunity to experience light and his love and his grace and his mercy.
Yeah.
And through that, I mean, we have eternal life, and we find joy, we find peace, we find hope, right? We find rest in all of this, in him, and in his words and his commands turn like honey to our lips, right? That's what it means when we've seen the darkness and we've seen the evil, and then we see what he offers us. And what he tells us is, come to me. I'm the one who gives you rest. Come to me. Come to me. And that's where we find him. And thank you, Jesus, for
Jesus
for this time, right? Thank you, Jesus, for
soul.
Saving Trey and me
Amen.
and Ben, and what we have the opportunity to experience for eternity is him. And Trey, you're not going to have to go back there ever again. You're not going to have to experience that ever again. You have the light of Jesus in you and the power of the Holy Spirit that's working through you each and every day, and that's keeping you, right? You have this lovely wife and these two beautiful kids and this great place and this great future that he has even here on earth and for eternity, which is going to be even better. And he saved you, Trey. And you're here talking to this stranger who you just met. Like, come on, how random was that? That we linked up at a men's group in Florida, out of all places. You were in Hawaii. I was in Chicago.
You think the enemy's sending like homeless dudes to send you messages, but Jesus isn't sending you like homies to be friends with?
What do
you think? It's the same thing.
Yeah. An opportunity like this to, guess what? Talk to so many people, to reach, hopefully, share this with your friends who are slipping down this, going down this road. Share this and tell them that there is true darkness out there, and there's true light out there, and it's a choice, and we can make that choice to choose him. Trey saw this firsthand. He lived these things firsthand. The things I went through don't even compare to what he physically felt, and lived. And thank you, Jesus, for the cross and for healing in your stripes and in your name and in your blood that covers us. And we have hope in you, God.
Oof. Bro, there's a war, baby.
Whew.
There's a war.
Yeah, and I lived it out in my head for like the last 10 minutes, let me tell you. My God.
I believe
it's literally
it, man.
my God.
Yeah.
After getting my story out there, man, it was just, there was a war that went on. That's for sure. As you can see, I was at a loss for words for a minute, but
Yeah.
Ben, it got
real dark.
That's how we're ending that one. We're ending that one on the point of Jesus at the end there.
Dude, for sure.
Thank you, God, for getting us through this, man.
Whew.
Trey, I'm so proud of you, man.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys so much.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, brother.
Can you believe this, man?
Whew.
I'm so proud of you, man.
That's a really good. I'm sorry you have to go through all that, but like you said, man, I think God's going to take you through whatever he needs to make you who he needs you to be.
When Dennis said at the end, you'll never have to go back there again, it felt real. I just went back there again, and I don't want to go there again. Like, I chose Jesus,
Amen. Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, it has no power over you, There might be like physical ramifications, of those chemicals in your body still, but it doesn't have power over you,
Yeah.